How's it going, everybody? Hanging over at twitch.tv/Lawler, and we're doing my favorite thing that we do every single week. It is our Q&A videos. We're going to be going through our last week's Q&A video and taking out the top questions that were asked. Again, if you guys would like to have your questions answered, two things you can do. Number one, you can leave a comment down below. If you see one you like, make sure you guys give it a thumbs up, as well as the video. Maybe hit subscribe because it helps me out greatly. And then you can also come over to the stream, twitch.tv/Lawler. We stream every day but Tuesday and Sunday, pending if I'm at a world championship or not, or whatever's going on. But if you guys come in to chat, we'll try to alternate between stuff in the YouTubes and stuff in the Twitch chat. So that's it. Let's jump into our first question. It's going to be starting off with a goodie from Frogburger. Interesting name. I don't know if this is a popular topic, but what are your thoughts on actually following the RLCS? It can be difficult to follow the format and how the point system works. Want to hear how you would change it if you could, or if you wouldn't change it. So I do think the difficulty is Rocket League esports brings in a very unique demographic. There is a lot of people where Rocket League is their very first esport. As someone who has watched esports since I was a wee little lad and grew up watching Halo on TV when I was a kid with like MLG and stuff, esports formats and all that kind of stuff is pretty straightforward, right? Like, I've never really had issues, and like once I look at a format for a little bit of time, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. So I think the circuit-based format, because it comes from Rainbow Six Siege and Counter-Strike and everything else, is super easy to understand. It is just same copy paste, and then the complications come through, like what format is, how the seeding works, all that kind of stuff. And that's where I try to educate you guys on that stuff. So overall, if you're a new fan and you come into the RLCS and I say, hey, there is fall, winter, major split, and in each split they play 3 events, and based upon how they play those 3 events, they then go to a major where they play against the other teams from the other regions. They do that 3 times, and then after that, they then go to an international event, the World Championship, to see who's the best team in the world. That's simplicity, but like truly understanding it is not something that a lot of people like grasp immediately. So I think that Psyonix is going to continue to simplify and make things easier. I don't think they should ever do another format like they did in winter, where it's like, hey, we're going to play this groups format, and then after this groups format, we're going to go to a page playoff system where these teams have buys and these other teams don't, and then if they lose, they drop down, but not these teams because they've already lost and are the worst performing but still made it through from the upper bracket, and then they get eliminated, but then these teams have to move on, and then if they get to this final part, like, it's a show. It's horrible. So making sure that things are as consistent as possible. That's why my proposed format has been groups to single limb, groups to single limb, groups to single limb. And you can change it up. You can do single, or you can do like double elimination groups. You can do Swiss groups. You can do round robin groups. But at least it's a groups into single limb. You show consistency in that, and then everything else becomes copy paste. But anytime you change to a new format, anytime you change to something different from what it was previously, like, hey, we've got 8 teams and they all play each other once, that's it. Like, it's going to take time to adjust to. So I do think that following along, it is a lot. But I also think that Rocket League fans want to consume everything, which is physically impossible. It is not possible to watch Sam, OCE, Mina, SSA, NA, EU. Like, it's just not possible. You can't watch APSE and every other region. It's just not a thing. So I think people need to get to the point now where, like, when in the past where we would watch every single game every single week, because broadcasts were like 4 or 5 hours, and that's it. 2 days, 4 or 5 hours? Yeah, no big deal. Now it's like you've got 4 or 5 days, and they're all like 8 to 9 hours a piece. Pick your favorite team, support your favorite teams, and then if you want to tune in for like the finals, semifinals, so be it. You know, like, I don't expect people to do all that stuff. And I do think eventually when they simplify the format and finally release that updated website, which was promised for the beginning of the year, we are now over halfway through the year. I don't know if we're ever going to get that website updated. So hopefully they will release more tools to make things simplistic. And if they don't, I will continue to do my best to break it down and explain it to you guys. So you can go to my YouTube channel. You literally go to my channel. You go here. You hit search. You type RLCS spring format or whatever you're looking for. And then you can find the details, everything you need to know about the RLCS 21-22 spring split. And I will put out videos with format explanations, and I will do it for you so you don't have to use your brain. Sound good? That's my recommendation. So hopefully they simplify it. Hopefully they update the website. Hopefully they provide more things to educate you guys on it. But overall, my recommendation is pick a favorite team, follow that team, know when they play. And even that's a pain in the butt unless you know what Liquipedia is. So At the end of the day, hit subscribe, turn on notifications so you guys can be informed of the stuff that I try to help you out with. Rudmer asks, hey, about the transfer window being open after every split. So transfer window is open after fall and winter. It is not after spring because they don't allow you to make transfers going into the World Championship. Although teams that don't qualify for Worlds do get kind of like a quick head start into the like trade and transfer window. Transfer windows apply after fall and winter. They don't happen after spring because they want to make sure teams don't change last minute going into the World Championship and give like some consistency. The teams that don't make for World Championships are very rarely going to be the ones that get first dibs. Like if you're the best team, if you're the best performing teams at 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, yes, you're going to be the most sought after for an up and comer. Like if I am Daniel, if I'm beast mode, if I'm whatever, yeah, I'm going to want to go to the best performing teams that provide the best offers, and the teams that perform the best are going to be the ones that do it. Like even though it's an unfair advantage, like you also like bigger orgs are also willing to spend more money and provide support to these players. Like that's just kind of the way that it goes. That's the way that's always going to be. Like yeah, smaller orgs are smaller orgs for a reason. Like until they secure investors or they're willing to put money where their mouth is, like they're not going to be as sought after as somebody else. Sometimes loyalty, and sometimes maybe they take a chance on a new up and comer that somebody else did and it rewards them. They find that diamond in the rough. But there's even organizations that will purposely pick up diamond in the rough players and then sell them to make money. Because at the end of the day, it is a business and they're trying to make money. I mean, look at Rogue. Rogue let First Killer go. Aqua was allowed to do tryouts. Like your two best players, you're either letting go and doing buyouts on or letting them try out elsewhere rather than keeping them and trying to build a team. It happens. It's kind of the way it goes. So that's just the way that it is, and it's unrealistic to think that these organizations should be, unfortunately, given that fair chance. Like it's not fair. It's never going to be fair. Like that's just the way that goes. So unless they do a franchise system or they do like salary caps and all that kind of stuff, it's not going to be that way. But if I'm NRG, if I'm Space Station, if I'm, you know, TSM, Cloud9, 100 Thieves, you know, any of these teams, yeah, I'm going to go and send a bunch of money at a player to entice them to come play for us so we can win World Championships. That's just the way it goes. As it goes for the like transfer windows and stuff, it's tough because I can't see the rest of your message. I don't know why it cuts off here. Thanks, YouTube. But summer and winter transfer window, I mean, you got to have one after fall because that's the first one, and then one after winter because you've got to make one last change before the end of the season. And even still, like teams that don't qualify for Worlds, like I mentioned, they aren't going to be the sought after. Like if I'm Cash, if I'm Tox, if I'm Reziers, while I can go and try out for some of these teams that didn't qualify for Worlds, ideally after World Championship, if I'm like Semper's probably going to try out teams and players, I would assume. Endpoint is using a player on loan. Maybe they try out some of these new players. Like imagine Endpoint brings in Reziers. What if Endpoint brings in Cash? We don't know. We have no idea. Maybe Archie does leave and all of a sudden that spot needs to be filled on Semper. Or like again, those top tier teams are always going to have first dibs. That's just the way it goes. There's a reason why the top stay at the top. So unless they continue to make bad changes and bad choices, I hate to do it because I love Potts and the boys over at United, but United's a prime example. United was a team that with Birds and the Bees went to the World Championship and since then have not had any form of success. And you could arguably look at the players and the roster changes that they're deciding to make and you go, yeah, like you didn't go after the new hot up and coming talent. You didn't go after the Daniels. You didn't go after the beast modes. You didn't go after, like, it's kind of the way it goes. By zooming out, it worked. Force teams stick together. They're going to try to perfect that. Yeah, in your question, I do agree that sometimes it does make sense, but other times it doesn't. There is certain times where like teams sticking together does benefit. G2 is a prime example. But then there's other times where disbanding is kind of the easy route. So, all right. Next comes from KMBC. Keep up the good work. Appreciate the kind words. Tough question. Do you think the RLCS season is too long? I don't think it's necessarily too long, but I do think that the formats, the broadcast times, everything else is too much. I think they need to add a little bit more strictness to the amount of lives. Like if we're going to have 3 regionals, these regionals need to be pretty strict for like results. If you don't show up on the day, you need to be punished for it. You have 2 other regionals to make up for that. I think that is part of it that comes into play, and it is something they need to refine on. You say CSGO as an example has S2 tournaments within short time frame all the time. Should RL start doing this, or is it lack of tournament organizers or something else? So the cool thing about like CSGO and the way they do it is Valve is kind of hands off. Like, they have a committee that oversees, like, if there's a big tournament and things are going well, they'll like chime in and be like, hey, make sure you do these things and kind of oversee it. But other than that, they just let the community do their thing. And there's a chance that in the future, Psyonix may, and I hope, allow for that, where they just let organizers go crazy and then they just kind of facilitate from afar. Knowing Psyonix, that probably won't happen now that I think about it. But the cool thing about Counter-Strike is because there is so many tournaments like that, they just allocate league play points to all these tournaments, and then teams pick and choose which ones they go to based upon whether they need those to qualify for the official events and the majors. So I think it's kind of an interesting way to do it. So I think it's pretty cool. But yeah, I don't know if there's an easy answer. I think it's an experimentation process, and again, we're only in our second season with the circuit-based format, technically first with official like in-person stuff. So I think it'll be interesting to see what Psyonix does next season, depending on how the viewership is for World Championships in Texas, and then what they do for the subsequent season after they get their first official like live events, LANs are happening. Like, I am curious to see what 22-23 season looks like. Do you think Daniel would want to change rosters if SSG don't perform at Worlds? No, I don't think so. I think you guys got to understand that Daniel is still a pretty new acquisition. He's only been with SSG for 2 splits. That's pretty new. And when you are building a team and you're trying to build upon something, like, Space Station should be pretty proud of their success. They've played quite well. So I don't think there's any justification for Daniel leaving by any means. I don't think SSG really needs to make a decision for changing stuff, unless there's something internally or like lack of motivation or something like that going on. But for right now, like, Space Station's just in a building process, and they've played very successfully. Like, they were 1 goal off of top 3, top 4. So they are still building upon and getting experience with a rookie. The only team that, like, if like NRG doesn't have good results at Worlds, maybe something to consider, because the team's been together for a very long time. Or even better yet, maybe they do in the off season start working on different play styles and trying to figure things out and like identify some, like, again, there's the only people that know should be making roster changes are the players involved and the coaches and their staff. Like, there is so much more going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, and unless they vocalize that stuff, we will never know about it. So my recommendation is, while it's cool to theorycraft what that may look like and what that may be, have respect for the fact that, like, these are professionals and there's a lot of different factors that go into changes, whether the trade goes through, different tryouts, who's available. Like, FaZe is like, hey, you know, I know he plays top 4, but let's go pick up Sypical because we know Sypical is better than Illusion. See how it works out. It's a risk, and that risk is going to continue to happen. So it's why it's very entertaining for us, because we just sit back and enjoy it and go, wow, I can't believe that was going to happen. Like, this offseason, I'm going to tell you guys right now, this offseason for roster changes is going to be absolutely insane. But like, Europe in general, insanity. Absolutely insane. I've heard and talked with, and I am excited to see what the heck happens. Love your YouTube content. Yo, thank you so much. Appreciate the Prime Gaming sub. Smug Jester, also a Hunter profile pic. Bunch of weebs. Bunch of weebs in my comments, which also weeb, so it's fine. I noticed some players have roles they play very well on their teams. Captains, disruptor, defender, etc. Sure. Ways to easily identify play styles or impact. In-game leaders or IGLs. Do you believe teams perform better with a mix of players better at their respective roles, or players who don't stand out in any particular area? I think this is kind of an interesting one, because it's good to have like an amalgamation of a little bit of everything. Like, this is why it's so tough when people ask, like, yo, what makes a good coach, or like, who are good coaches? Different coaches have different roles, and the best coaches are ones that will take what they have. If I've got player 1, 2, and 3, and player 1 is really good at this thing, player 2 is really good at this thing, and player 3 is really good at this thing, some of those may overlap, some of those may not, some of them may be very weird, but it is about finding a way to create a playstyle that enables those players to play as naturally as possible. You don't want to force a player. Like, Garrett G in the OG days with NRG was forced to play a ton of defense because Jacob would not rotate back. Love Jacob to death. He's one of my favorite people in the Rocket League scene. But Jacob would literally not rotate past Hatfield. Just wouldn't do it. So Garrett was forced to play a ton of defense and couldn't move up and be impactful. And it limits them as players. It was a massive problem. There is coaches that are going to look at what are your strengths and try to enable those things. And it is easier to do when there is identifiable features. People like Garrett, Chicago, massive vocal leaders for their team. But they also do a lot of things on the field and off the field that separate those things. So I do think it is good to initially the number one thing that goes into do we pick this player up or not is when they are doing tryouts without having any history together. Does it feel easy to do? Best example I can give is with version 1. Version 1 tried out Gyro, they tried out Aqua, they tried out Beast Mode, they tried out like a bunch of different players. And when I talked with Com about this, and hopefully he's okay with me sharing this, Aqua actually filled in very well for them. Like, they felt pretty comfortable with Aqua. But when they tried out with Beast Mode, he's like, this game has become so easy. Like, he's like, I am allowed to play as fast and as aggressive as I want. And I know no matter what, Torment's got my back. Beast Mode's going to follow up, or Beast Mode's going to hit that double touch 99% of the time. He's always going to crush it. And like, having not only that faith in your teammates, but also the trust that you can then also go do what you want and have that support are the biggest factors that go into the different roles and stuff. And it comes from like an instinctual, like organic level, rather than like, hey, I'm this type of player, this is how I play. Pros don't really, I think about that stuff. From the ones that I've talked about, they don't really look into the like in-depth stuff of, this is the like, yo, I need a disruptor on my team to go demo and stuff. It's stuff that just happens naturally, and then you work around it. So I think when, like, if I'm a coach or something like that and I'm looking at it, I will try to, via eye test, try to identify what type of player they are. But at the end of the day, I'm going to sit and talk with that person on a one-on-one and be like, hey, like, what are the things that you like doing, don't like doing? Is there a certain play style you would position yourself in? Is there certain things you like to accomplish on a team? Like, those types of things. And then try to build that up. And then make small adjustments based upon the play and how it looks. So I think initially it helps to have like an identification and like a label. But at the end of the day, like, I trust my players more than anybody to be like, hey, I like playing with this guy. He's really good. All right, sweet. Let's run it. You know, what pro that has retired do you miss the most in the scene? Oh, man. Gosh, that's tough. Let me pull up a roster list for you, Wendy. Let me look at some of the OGs way back from RLCS Season 1. I've always gotten along with Pashy pretty well. I've always gotten along with Pashy quite a bit, but I would arguably say, more than anybody, Espeon. I miss Espeon so much. Espeon is such a wholesome and lovable person. Probably Espeon, I would have to say. From like RLCS Season 1, out of all those people, Jacob, I don't see enough, but I really like Jacob a lot. Espeon is awesome. He went and took an internship at Facebook, and now he's busy doing that. So Espeon's living his life, doing his thing. Marky is still coaching, so we still have him around. Pashy still like plays and does stuff on YouTube. I miss Linus a lot. A lot's a good time. Breezy's funny as heck. Remco is a good dude too. Like a lot of the OGs are awesome people. They really are. Yeah, there's a lot of good times. Yeah, I miss Espeon. Probably out of all the people that are still like I haven't seen Espeon involved in Rocket League in any capacity in such a long time. So I think Espeon's probably the one I would go. I still remember his like backwards air dribble with the Merc when he's playing with James Bott. And I'm like, what? That's possible? Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. He used to play the breakout all the time. This is actually a really good question, but it's one that I've talked about academy systems and like a secondary system in videos of the past. I don't think orgs should have to be the ones that implement a amateur scene or a semi-pro scene. Like the AAA Challenger Series, which is actually going on this weekend, is put on by Flashes of Brilliance and is them with AAA providing funding to make a tournament for teams that are ranked like 17 to 24, 32. The difficulty is those types of things I don't think should be up to organizations. I think Psyonix should have, just like they had the RLRS, some sort of way to provide funding or have like money allocation to prop up like new up and coming casters and all that kind of stuff, right? Like a lot of those difficulties, right? I think there's a lot of things that they could be doing in regards to making ways for it to give kind of like a training grounds for new formats, different styles of things. I talked about like broadcasting closed qualifiers, but that's a way to like prop up your talent, your production teams, try out different formats. Like there needs to be a way to, I guess, almost like experiment, like an experimental league and figure that stuff out, right? They had intentions with that. It wasn't the grid. There was another one before the grid. Do you guys remember what it was called? There was a thing that you could sign up for if you were like GCSSL, and I forget the name of it, back in RLCSX. But there needs to be some sort of way to like implement that. And then the orgs, if they choose to, could have like academy teams.
And I'm back, baby.
The field. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, chat. The field. So like, if they did something like the field again and they made it more of an official thing where they're like, yo, organizations go and organize it, do whatever the heck you want. And then maybe teams would do that, but no organization is going to have an academy team because that means you would be hiring kids that are like 12, 13. And maybe in the future, we see a difference. But with the age restriction being 15, I don't foresee it. I think it's ridiculous to kind of start hiring kids at that age. It's way too young. Now, if they increase the age restriction to like 17, 18, then I could see like academy teams for a couple of years, like 15, 16, and then build that way. But I don't think organizations should be doing academy teams with kids that young. I just don't think, like, they can't even stream if they're 12. So like, what's the point? Like, their orgs would get nothing out of it other than maybe developing new kids where their hobbies and interests are going to change every second anyway. So I think it's tough and it's unrealistic to do. So I just don't know if we'll ever have an academy system because the players are too young, personally. All right, last question for the video. So let's, given the current state of visa problems with MENA players, do you think that we are still going to get a rematch for Moist and Falcons? I do. I really do. I mean, at least I hope we do. I think looking at the World Championship, when it talks about like favorites and people that you can expect to see, Moist has shown that they are some of the iciest players on the pitch. They're so confident. Ironically enough, it always comes from the lower bracket. So if you see Moist in the lower bracket, be afraid. Run. But I don't know if this format's going to benefit them or not. You know, they're playing in a double elimination. So there is a chance for that like lower bracket. But it's going to be spread across so many days that when it comes to the World Championship Day, you got to play perfect. Like when it's Championship Sunday, you have to win 3 series in a row. No ifs, ands, or buts. 3 best 7s, you got to run it. You got to run straight through. So we've seen them with momentum in a lower bracket run. What happens if Moist drops down early? If Moist drops down in group stage and then wins 2 in a row, they make top 8. People should be afraid. So I think Moist is up there. I think Falcons are also another team that without a doubt has a ton of potential. And I don't think you should count out Veloce or 0-1 either. I have expectations that Veloce is probably going to make it out of wild card. I think 0-1 will be in a 2-2 maybe round and fighting. But yeah, Mina's really good. Moist is one of the favorites to win. I don't expect G2 to have the same lackluster result. I expect G2 to play a lot better than top 9. I wouldn't be surprised if they place top 8. BDS, I don't know what the heck's going to show up. I've seen some interesting things about Seiko on LAN and in front of a crowd. We'll see if that those nerves settle and they play back. Like it's wild. So wildcard I think is going to be probably the best Rocket League we've ever seen. I think as a fan of the game, getting to watch wildcard with that many different regions and not just the top, but you're talking like 3-4 seeds all the way, or like 4 seeds down to like 6 seeds for the major regions, and then for the minor regions you've got 2, 3, 1. Like I think that's super exciting. I think it's so cool to be able to watch how teams like the club, Kansas City Pioneers, are going to perform against SSA, APAC, as well as MENA. Like maybe MENA comes in and shows that they are the best region and they've got all 3. Like we don't know. So that unknowingness, that question mark, I think is why I'm so excited. And yes, the visa problems do create some complications. It limits boot camping and stuff like that. But I think as long as they get there with a few days ahead, like if they're not showing up the day before, I think they'll be okay. So plus you got 3 lives. Make them count. So if I know anything about MENA teams, anytime they get more and more games in, the scarier they look. So I'm looking forward to it. Either way, that's going to do it for today's Q&A video. Appreciate you guys putting off and dealing with all the, I don't know how much Wojtek cut out, but shout outs to the editor for fixing the nonsense. But again, thank you all so much for tuning in for the Q&A video. Always a pleasure reading and asking your questions. If you guys want to be in these, we do these every Sunday, unless we're doing like recap videos and we got to delay them a little bit. But if you want to be a part of them, 2 ways you can do it. Comment down below. If you see one you like, give it a thumbs up, as well as the video, and hit subscribe as it helps me out greatly. Or come over to the stream, twitch.tv/LAWL. We do these every week if we can. And I plan to do them until you guys stop asking questions. So, and that hasn't happened for over a year now, which is crazy to think about. Easily my favorite videos to do during the week. With that said, I'm out of here. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.